note up here, it says that the homework quiz today is going to be like C-Tech. There's going to be 2 questions. One's either going to be addition or subtraction. When you add and subtract, what has to be the case? Different than multiplying and dividing. So what do you have to do in questions 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that you did not have to do in 7 through 10? What has to be the case when we add or subtract?
I'm looking at that. What is that?
That's for my algebra class. So over here, when you add and subtract, what has to be the case? What has to be the same before you can add or subtract in scientific notation?
1 and 10.
The first number is going to be between 1 and 10, but what's the key thing? That's when we get our answer. But what is it? Exponents have to be the same. So when you were doing question 2, 3, 4, and 5 up here, and number 6, every single one had to have the exponents to the same power. So if I'm looking at number 6, and I have, as I look at that question, so please let's look at number 6 right now. We were going to do this addition question. This is on the quiz today. Okay, it's not on the quiz, but if you were looking at one like this. If we look at number 6, I have the first one's to the -5 and the next one's to the -8. Yes, the other day in class we said we always want to go big. So which exponent do we want? Do we want it to be -8 or -5? Which one is larger? -5 is larger. So we're going to put down 7.45. We're going to leave some space because the one below has to have some decimals in it. It's going to have some numbers behind the decimal point. And we're going to have times 10 to the -5. If we're rewriting this one, 2.6 times 10 to the -8, and we want it to be 10 to the -5. Originally, this was -8. So if it's -8, this is going to be -7, one place over, -6, -5. So if I'm looking at 2.6 times 10 to the -8, we're going to write that as 0 point. We should have 2 zeros and then 2 6. I can't add these as they were here, but at this point I can add them together. And I don't have anything where the zeros are, so I'm going to have 7.4526 times 10 to the -5. And it's in scientific notation, which is what we want, Jeffrey. So everyone should have number 6 then if you didn't have it now, because we did that one. There is going to be either a multiplication, like 7 and 8, and then like 9 and 10, where you have a division problem. I need questions on any of those. For the bonus, when we hand this assignment in, which we are not doing today, but for the bonus, 11, 12, 13, remember you not only wanted to tell me the operation, but you actually wanted to do the problem to get the extra credit points on that. Okay? So as of today, I have a homework grade that we handed in last week of 9A. There's still quite a few of you in here that might not have turned in that 9A. If that's the case, you want to make sure you get that turned in. And then we are, 9B has to be done in order for you to take the test. So, no other questions? All right. Let's go to your notes on C10. And then towards the end of class, I will be, I'll get back your quizzes that we took on Friday. So everyone doing what with those? Power to a power up on the front board. What are we looking at? We should be multiplied, so 3 times 4. So I'm going to get x to the 12th for my answer. When I'm taking a look at the next one, what we have to be careful for is we have to take first the 3 has to be to the 2nd power. And then we have to multiply the 5 and 2, because the 3 was a 1, so that's like 1 times 2. And then we're taking that 5 times 2. So our answer, if we are looking at it, is going to be 3 squared, which is actually 9. So we're going to put 9 and then y to the 10, because we're going to multiply those. Okay? So as you are looking at these, now what they ask us to do is this next part down. It says, well, now we're going to do the same thing but with scientific notation. So we are going to take on our calculator 3.2, and that was to the first power, and we're going to cube it. So on your calculator, put in 3.2, and you're taking it to the third power. So some of you have to use that like x to the y or the caret key, and then you should get 3, so to the third power, and we get 32.768. We have to take this 10 to the 4, and we need to take the 4 times 3, which is going to give us 10 to the 12th again. At this point, our number is not in scientific notation, right? We have this 32.768, and it's times 10 to the 12th. This is telling us to move the decimal over 12 places. We need it to be between the 3 and 2. So I'm going to put 3.2, and I might put 77, right? Because we're always going to kind of look at just going 3 places back. Someone said if I put 3.2768, is it wrong? No. You put 3.277 on the quiz today, I would not mark that wrong. And now we're going to have, before we were moving it 12 places, now, Cassidy, we need to move it how much? It was 12. I need you to focus up here. So this was moving at 12 places. We're going to move it one more, Kara, we're looking at. To the 13th place. So this will be 13 instead of 12 for our final answer. Okay? So as we are looking at that problem. So the next page, we're just practicing. And we are going to rewrite this because I want to see your work. So you want to show me 7 to the 4th times 10. Morgan, what are we going to do with our exponents of 4 and 3? Multiply. Lucy, question. I do mean 7 to the 3rd. Good catch. 7 to the 3rd, 10 to the 12th. So on our calculator, and remember 7 to the 3rd from earlier this year, 343. But this is not in scientific, right? So if I'm looking at it, Lucy, this is telling me to move it 12 places. My final answer will be 3.43 times what? So this was 12. This will be, we have to move it further now. So 13 to the 14th power. Okay. So we weren't just moving it the one place back to get 13. We had to move it between that 3 and 4 to get 343. All right. The next one, we are taking Connor 2.1 to what power? To the second. Hunter, I'm going to take 10. What am I doing with the negative 7 and 2? Nope. But if I have power to a power, what's my rule tell me to do? What did we do up here with 4 and 3? We multiplied it, times it. What are we going to do here with the negative 7 and 2? We're going to times it. So we get negative 14 as we are looking at that. When you put in 2.1 and you square it in your calculator, what did you get, Timothy? 4.41. So do we have to change anything? No, it's already almost, that first number is already, as Jeffrey said at the beginning, in scientific notation, a number between 1 and 10. And we have times 10 to the 14 and you're done. Sometimes the problems are that nice and you just are going to put those two things in. What I want you to do right now is I want you to put in your calculator. I want you to put this in with parentheses. I want you to put in, we're going to clear what was there. And we're going to put parentheses, so put your first parenthesis, most of your calculators have parentheses. Put in 2.1 times 10, and then I'm going to raise mine to the negative 7. You're going to do yours the same way. I have to put in the 7, then I put the plus minus. I'm going to put back parentheses. So that's what 2.1 times 10 to the negative 7 looks like. Do you agree? If you think about that number? It just means that there are 6 zeros, right? 6 zeros in front of my 2.1. It says raise this to the second power. So we're going to take this whole thing and we're going to square it. Is this the same answer that we got? Look at what our answer was. We had 4.41 times 10 to the negative 14. If you wanted to count the number of zeros, my calculator shows, it actually shows all those zeros. It shows, if we are looking at that, 13 zeros before the 441. Now, many of your calculators, it might have came up this way on your calculator. 4.41 with a 13. Did it do that? With a negative 13? E13, right? So when we talked about last week on Friday, how sometimes calculators are going to show 4.41, and then it might say E negative 13. Oh, negative 14, yeah. The reason it's doing that is it's writing it in scientific notation. This is still your final answer. So let's check that last one. First do it by hand, then you're going to check it on your calculator. So if we're starting that one, as we started, 5 to what power?
Third.
5 to the careful. Not third, but to the, what power is out here? Not third, but?
Fourth.
What number's out here?
Negative third.
Negative third. So if you would have just said negative 3 the first time, you would have been right on, right? Jericho, we're going to have times 10 to the? Okay, careful. When you multiply these, what did you do first? So you had negative 4 times negative 3, and you're telling me that's 13? I didn't realize that was 13. It's how much? 3 times 4 is? Okay, you're telling me your final answer. I don't want the final answer. I want this part where we're taking the negative 3 times 4 that gives us 12, right? 5 to the negative 3 power. What did you get when you put it in your calculator? Put it in right now. What did you get, Ellen? 0.008. So I had 0.008 times 10 to the 12. So Jerica, did you put the whole thing in parentheses in your calculator? Is that what you were trying to tell me the answer? Okay. I agree. But in this case, right, this is telling us to move it 12 places, right? We need our decimal point here. Do I have to move it to go 12 places? No, I get to move it less, right? This would be moving it 11 places. This would be moving it 10 places. This would be moving it 9 places. My final answer here is 8 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 12 minus 3 gives us to the 9th power. If you weren't sure and you wanted to check this again, you could put in your calculator your parentheses and put in 5 times 10 raised to the negative 4. And if you have that in your calculator and you raise it to the negative 3, so raised to the third negative, you get this 800, if we are looking at this, right? And 8 followed by 9 zeros. Isn't that what this is? That's going to be an 8 followed by 9 zeros. It's just that it's written in scientific notation. So if you put this whole thing in your calculator, the answer it gives you is that 8 followed by the 9 zeros. When we take the test, you want to give it in scientific notation, or on your homework, they ask you to give it in scientific. So you just got to make sure you know how to change it back and forth. Here's the last question that we're going to be looking at, and then we're going to take your homework quiz. In this one, if you were reading this, please read Janessa. So when we look at this question, there's one just like it in your homework tonight. There's another one coming up in a couple of days that looks just like this. When we are looking at this question, in order to find volume, remember volume is equal to length times width times height. They're telling us the thickness, this, this, and they're telling us it's a square chip. So what does that mean about my length and my width if it's square? They're going to be the same, right? So what am I looking at? I'm looking at my length and width both being 2.4. So I have 2.4 times 10 to the negative 5. How many of those do I have? 2 of them, because that's my length and my width, times my height, which is 1.6 times 10 to the negative 8. So I'm sure as you're writing this down in your notes, right? We're going to take on our calculator 2.4 squared. We have times 10 to the what power, Riley, when I have negative 5, 2? To the negative 10. I have times 1.6 times 10 to the negative 8. Now before I put that in my calculator, here's what I want to put in my calculator. 2.4 squared times 1.6. Please put that in your calculator right now. 2.4 squared times 1.6. 2.4 squared times 1.6. You want to tell me what they had for an answer? 2.4 squared times 1.6. Got it? Got it, Isaac? 9.216. 9.216. So what we like so far, right, is it's already like when we write our answer in scientific notation, it's already that way. Well, we had this back here times 10 to the negative 10 and times 10 to the negative 8. What are we doing, Johan, with those exponents when we're multiplying the bases of the same? We have to add them. So I'm going to have this 9.26 times 10 to the negative 18. It's a really, really small number, right? That's the volume of that. It's teeny tiny. That's why your cell phones can now do so much and you don't need a computer that fills the whole room, right? So this technology is making this microchip hold a ton of information. It says this is the volume of it. 9.26 times 10 to the negative 18. That means it has 17 zeros, right? That's how small it is before this 9218. Okay? Your assignment in your textbook. So if you need your notes open, the first 6 questions are doing the powers. The next are review. 7 to 12, there's a mixture of addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. Okay? Number 13 is one like we just did. So if you need to look at that example, 13 is exactly the same as the one we just did. And then this one says, what's the area of the rectangle? So how do you find area of the rectangle? We are talking about length times width. So it's another multiply.